We are happy to invite our next speaker for the day, Architect J. Subramanian, Executive Director of Stoop Group of Companies, Udagamandalam, India.
Dear delegates, co-presenters, and ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to be a part of this ICON 2021 organized by SRM School of Architecture and Design. And SRM has always been very proactive in such matters, even this during this difficult times of communication. They have organized several webinars, several conferences, and then they have shown their zeal for propagating architectural topics. So I extremely feel proud to be part of this. Now, as far as I am concerned, I am a graduate of 1965, and with 55 years of professional background, like a child gathering pebbles, I have gathered lots of things over a period of time, having been involved in projects both in India and abroad of multi-varying typologies, 3 generations of clients, contractors, building technology. Now, I have formed my own opinion on what we have traveled through and what architecture has evolved over a period of time. Now, this talk of mine is an attempt to trace it from the olden days to what is now today. Now, my understanding of architecture of today is it is akin to crafting a complex machine. Now, it's Corbusier who said, house is a machine to live in. But then I don't know how much of contribution he made to live up to his own statement. But then I feel proud that I have experienced it, and to the best of my knowledge, I have lived up to it. Now, let us go to the historical evidences. Now, what were things in the past? Let's go to, say, Roman, Greek. I don't want to start from Egypt. Now, Roman and Greek and all that were all buildings of singular typology and very simple in its function. These were not demanding on the end product, and these were built by, I don't know how the resources came. The resources came from the royal hold or the monasteries or the religious heads, but the buildings were visually spectacular, if not iconic, and the construction technology was based on first principles, and they had no particular respect for time, and they had no particular concern of resources, saving resources or any of that kind. Now, as the time evolved, the typology which was singular is slowly becoming plural, and many new typologies came. I'll come to it a little later. But then, as far as the building technology is concerned, I consider Gothic to be an amazing period. The Gothic period, which is 12th and 13th century, is normally called the dark ages in the history books. I always vehemently differed from that, purely from architectural point of view, because that is the time when Gothic architecture came. Gothic architecture, as most of the architects in the delegates, amongst the delegates will agree, they were the first one to introduce the concept of ribs and panels. Now, the supports became very slender, and the logic of structure was very visible, And Gothic really brought about a big revolution. In fact, they are the founders of the modern frame structure, according to me. And but all the same, the materials and the construction technology and the architectural character were all regional. Then what happened during this Middle Ages, what is referred to as Dark Ages, although the architectural styles prospered and there were trades, there were wars and all that, there were a lot of transfer of culture. Now slowly Gothic started spreading all over Europe, and it went to UK, and from Persia the Islamic architecture came to India, and it became Saracenic. The Saracenic got later glorified into Mughal. But all these things, even in India, you will find that the Indian buildings earlier, whether it is viharas or Dravidian, they all were travated and never experimented on construction technology. And it is Saracenic and Mughal, when they came, arches came to India. Then pointed arches came to India. So there was a big revolution here as well, as far as architecture is concerned. Okay, but all the same, the typology still remains singular. Either it were royal households, or they were glorifying the dead, or they were, temples, etc. But then the Industrial Revolution came because of the human needs. And when the Industrial Revolution came, new typologies came. New typologies of production units, plants to house, manufacture of machines and the products, etc. Now the Industrial Revolution brought about lot of new materials. Suddenly people discovered there is much more than brick and stone. There is steel, cement. 1870, cement was invented. Now when the cement came, then it replaced lime and other bonding materials very gracefully and spectacularly. And then subsequently cement gave rise to concrete. Now concrete, as I always keep saying, is a miracle material, particularly the reinforced cement concrete. And they suddenly realized that they can afford to carry more load, larger spans. So the architect's imagination simply dismantled all the shackles and then broadened their own concepts. And the new typologies, because of the lifestyle changes. Now they started having sports facilities, recreational facilities. One of the earliest sports and recreational facility was only in Italy, this Colosseum. Now the Colosseum, very amazingly, it was ahead of its time. In fact, I have seen Colosseum. They have even manual lifts to carry VIPs to the upper galleries. But then there was no roof, and the construction methods were very primitive by modern standards. But then now what happened was, those were regional. Now new typologies like new transportation came. Now transportation meant from region to region, country to country. So airports, harbors, bridges, highways, super roads, all these things brought about a kind of a global spread for the typology. When typologies came new, then architects have to struggle to think well beyond just palaces and religious houses, or the earliest recreation was only the Roman baths. But then subsequently, this hospitalization, the healthcare facilities, then hospitality industries brought about a big revolution in the building typology. So people they were under pressure to discover new vocabulary and new methods of construction. So on one hand, steel, glass, then cement and concrete, and techniques of precast concrete, techniques of pre-stressed concrete, all these things influenced the architectural thinking radically. Now they have new blocks to assemble. They have new functions to meet. And also funding of projects came into a big issue, because earlier I honestly do not know who funded the projects. Maybe it was it was just the rulers. But then now, in modern days, the funding is a very complex process. The entire world is involved in funding. There's a World Bank, there's an Asian Development Bank, and the government itself has got to fund the projects. Once you start funding the projects, the accountability comes. Accountability of how this money is spent and how do you get value for money, whether you got the best out of the system what you have used. All these things brought about new challenges for architects. They have become no more just dreamers. Now they got to dream keeping the reality in mind. This is a major shift according to me. Now you have got to explain, why did you spend so much of money? What for? What materials did you use? And this could not be done by individual creations. This has to be supported by the partners in the profession. Who are they? The material manufacturers and the building technologists and building construction equipment. The first time I saw a tower crane in India was only in 60s. Until then, there were no high-rise buildings or tall buildings. So when I went to Bombay in the year 1965, I was fascinated to see buildings going well beyond the tallest building that I have seen, which was LIC building in Chennai. Now, historically, the tallest structure that I have seen, which was meant for habitation, was only the Leaning Tower of Pisa. There was no other construction in multi-level. Now, the multi-level constructions posed new kind of challenges. Now, parallelly, you find that the moment you have tall buildings and different functions, building services have got to rise up to the occasion. What are the building services? Power, water, public health management, and also internal climate control. People could not accept natural ventilation anymore. So they wanted ventilation to be manipulated and controlled for various reasons. One for control, comfort, and also critical controls, and also for industrial requirements. And when you do an industrial building, particularly pharma industries and all that, the climate control is very important. Now, architects for a long time, even in India, have been shying away from industrial projects. Fortunately, as far as I am concerned, I did a lot of industrial projects, and I found an industrial project as fascinating as any other project, because it is a task, you have the skill, you got to match the task and the skill, and then you produce the end product. Now, such kind of challenges will motivate you to satisfy a client. Now, the client is a new word. Now, I don't know who was a client for Notre Dame Cathedral, maybe the bishop or the monastery or whatever it is. Now, the clients themselves are complicated now, or complex. There are varying clients. The client is just not the financier of the project. The client is a user of the project. You're going to satisfy the chairman of the group as well the factory manager or the factory worker. So you are meeting the user satisfaction has assumed new kind of challenges. And this is what has made architect's life take a different perspective altogether. Designing of an airport, for example. I was talking about transport. Now, when you talk of an airport, who is the user of an airport? Now, that has got to be defined first of all. Whether they are the airline operators, or whether they are the airline passengers, or they are the security agencies who is responsible for the safety and the security aspects of the travel, or the promoters who invest money, who would like to make money out of airport. So now there are multiple users, multiple challenges. So your own toolbox has got to be substantially enhanced and enlarged. And not only the toolbox, the skill to deploy them. And when you deploy them, they want you to deploy minimum and reap maximum. Now this calls for a different skill. I don't think this was never in the past, in the history until very recently. In my own career of 55 years, I have found this drastic shift. And architects were taught that they are going to create buildings which are visually exciting, but not anymore. You're going to create visually exciting buildings, all right, but then unless it is functionally satisfactory inside, structurally sound, and cost effective, and people do not accept it. Now the new thing has come, project management and delivery. Now, I don't know how long they took to build a monument like Taj Mahal. People tell me 28 years, 30 years, 40 years. There is no authentic evidence. But then today there are goals set for time and cost. If you undertake to host Commonwealth Games, now you cannot take it easy. You're going to finish the stadiums in time so the event can be held. And if you fail in the task, the penalties are very heavy. And in order to finish the task in time, you have got to identify the right kind of materials, right kind of construction systems, and right kind of project management system. You have got to learn to do multitasking and contracting. And so slowly from regional, we have become spectacularly global now. From the construction point of view, the architects and their team of supporting engineers have understood the structural principles more deeply, and not only that, they understood the potentials of materials. What can be done out of steel? What can be done out of concrete in order to realize their dreams? In fact, some architects like Mies, Saarinen, Buckminster Fuller and all that have thought far ahead of their time. They all were living very early. But then currently, with all these softwares and your ability to analyze the structures, understand the soil. I don't think geotechnical investigation has ever been so complex as it used to be. And partly because we are not happy with the land what we have, we start taking, things like reclaiming of land, developing lands which has once been discarded. And these all have given rise to understanding of the geotechnical part. And finally, the structure responds to all this. In fact, according to me, a good architectural product is the one which responds to all this. Good substructure, the good superstructure, the use of material, and all these are to be done keeping two vital parameters in mind. One is cost and other is the time. You're going to finish it on time and you're going to finish it within a budget. Now, so the manifold expansion of human needs gave rise to new typologies, and this becoming global became important for authorities to have a kind of a uniform building code. So building code of practices, and both for materials and design have started. Even for construction methods, contracting methods, there is an organization called FIDIC who have even specified what is the best mode of contract that you should deploy in order to achieve the end product. Then of course we spoke about building services and vertical transportation and critical air conditioning, and parallelly R&D given a lot of focus. There were research and development undertook by institutions and great organizations, and they started doing, they never rest their oars until they perfect a material or they perfect a technology. And security has become a new concern. Now everybody is worried about the safety, about the unsocial activities in buildings, and disasters have also assumed new proportions. And so the disaster management, all these things have shaped the modern architecture. And that is why buildings consume a lot of energy, particularly healthcare facilities. If you go to Roman or Gothic period, you can never find a sophisticated healthcare facility. But now healthcare facilities are becoming increasingly complex, warranting sophisticated support services. Without these healthcare facilities would fail. And with these kind of different parameters, architects cannot function as an individual. They are now become team leaders, and they got to lead a team. I still want architects to lead the team because they're the only one who can comprehend the various issues and manage the toolbox at their command, and then see that the end product is created to the best satisfaction of the end user. Now, I have all these have resulted in an energy crisis. Buildings have become guzzlers of energy. Now, people are now scared whether this energy has got to be managed and this energy has got to be sustained. So this sustainability has become another major yardstick. So an architect has not only to be accountable in resources, but also has got to satisfy the funding agencies and also the users regarding the conservation of energy and management of energy. Now, machines are, and after all this, you still want buildings to have local identities, and people have desire to say that it is, I am the architect for this. So all these things are called for a special skill. In spite of becoming global, you have got to become local as well. Now this is what has given rise to a new term which is called global, which is global as well as local. Now this is another major shift, and I purposely call these architecture products to be crafted, because machines generally are manufactured. When machines are not, although they are also crafted, but they are manufactured in a larger scale. All BMW cars look alike, all Boeing aircrafts look alike, but then buildings cannot afford to be like that. Although buildings are also as complex a machine as an Airbus aircraft or a BMW car. So what makes it different? You craft a building, you don't manufacture a building. So I conclude by saying that architecture of today is akin to crafting a complex machine. Why it is complex? All this, whatever I narrated, illustrates the complexity of this. Now, I really congratulate Icon Building Engineering Science and Technology Group for having organized this platform so that some of these ideas can be put on record for the benefit of the listeners. Another major influencing factor is the competitiveness in the industry. Now, even if you take aircraft, however well they make, between the manufacturing companies, there is a competition to bring about the fuel efficiency, the operating efficiency, etc. And what's the use of such competitive field? Now that helps you to sharpen your skills and see that you really deploy minimum resources and maximize the benefits. And this cannot be done unless there is a big collaborative effort. And same thing happens in buildings as well. Now when you build a stadium, or when you build more so an industrial project, somebody would like to spend more money on the machinery and then the production capacity rather than the shell or the building that houses these processes. So you have got to balance between how to really deploy the total money that is given to you, and there are watchdogs. They monitor what you are doing, and there is a process of approval now. It was not that earlier. Now, on top of all these financial approvals, the functional approvals, etc., now you have got to also keep the problems of a city in mind. After all, your building cannot be looked at in isolation. It's part of a development or part of a city. Now, the cityscape or the city has got to have its own discipline. That's why the development controls came. Now, when the development controls come, it's an architect's responsibility to understand it and respect it, and if necessary, question it. Now, we are also responsible for the urban aesthetics. And finally, the city should not look like a warehouse of buildings, but then it has got to have a character in its total assembly as well. Now, I think every architect has got to contribute to this. So you cannot think in isolation at all. Even amongst other projects, you have got to take other projects also into account and then respond to the city's development and also to your own site development under support of infrastructure, etc. Now, I really thank SRM's concept of building, environment, science and technology. Now, these are the concerns of today. Now, who are better people than institution like SRM to give a thrust to this subject? And I am extremely happy, like I said in the beginning, to be a part of this presentation. And I thank all the organizers for conceiving the project and also for giving me an opportunity to share my views. So to conclude, I say that architecture of today is akin to well-crafted machines. Thank you.
Thank you, Architect J. Subramanian, for sharing your wonderful experience with us. Now, we will move on to a short sponsor break.
I have great pleasure in welcoming you all for the Let's Connect program of Nippon Paint India Private Limited. This program is specifically developed for the architect and the interior designer community to be part of the Nippon Paint family. Nippon Paint, as you all know, is part of the NIPSEA group, which is 137 years old, originated from Japan, and we have widely spread into all the Asian countries. In India, Nippon Paint was started in the year 2006, and that's when Indian Green Building Council was gaining momentum, and since the DNA of Nippon Paint is green, so we joined them in their campaigning of green initiatives, and we became the founding member of IGBC, Indian Green Building Council. And right from 2006 onwards, we have been associated with all their initiatives towards sustainable products and services, and we are the first company to be registered and certified as Green Co for all our manufacturing process, and the products which come out of the factory is also certified as Green Pro. Through this Let's Connect program, we would like to take your unique ideas and your projects through video shoots and sound bites to the industry people and to the audience who are eagerly waiting. Through this Let's Connect program, we create an opportunity for you to share your unique ideas and success stories. You will also have an access to be part of the AYDA program of Nippon Paint, and also into various architectural conferences, CSR activities what Nippon is carrying out in this country. AYDA is a very unique initiative of Nippon Paint, wherein it encourages and enriches the young architect and interior designing students across Asia, and we call this as Asia's Young Designer Award, wherein we want experts like you to mentor them. Through this program, we also create an opportunity for you to meet your peers and work with them closely across the globe. This platform also allows you to create an access to the tools and product information of Nippon Paint, and also there will be a dedicated Nippon team working closely with you. I once again take this opportunity to welcome you all into this Let's Connect program for a mutually beneficial experience. Let's connect.
Welcome to the course Color Psychology. The first module, the background of color, will give you an overview of multiple perceptions in color. We will learn about the scientific background.
I have scientific proof that white light is composed of 7-component colors.
Understand basics of color theory. Take inspirations from colors in nature.
Context matters, you know.
Teleport to different time zones to get historical perspectives of color.
Is Greek architecture devoid of colour? Isn't it completely white?
And finally, dig deep into the human mind to get psychological perspectives of color. We will then go on to explore color in various spatial typologies of architecture and interiors. A transition from theory to practice would happen in the last module on practice and application of color. The journey would be immersive with fun quizzes and activities along the way. Join us in this colorful, fun-filled journey.
Hey!